I would say. And your task as young journalists is how to figure out, I'll go back and maybe I'll stop there because I'm kind of tired of talking, how to figure out where that line is. Remember I talked about that line between conveying information, reporting a story, getting the news out, allowing viewers who are also citizens of a democracy to learn and know what's going on, and where that crosses into pure spectacle. You know, where do you go from news to a reality television? You know, where does that line cross? And that's a very tricky line. And that's something that you are going to have to, figure out as you go forward in your careers. Yes?
Which is the next topic for the book?
On Gandhi, I just said, yeah.
Question. So they have, during the last semester, they have had lectures from a former Indian ambassador who's taken them through India's rise and India's history and discussed things. I'm sort of going to poke you on the Gandhi issue. Is the ideal, are Gandhian values, are they dead? Are they utopian? Are they impractical for this new, shining, modern, I'm wearing khadi now, but, you know,
I'm wearing Agnes Bay.
I say this, I mean, Rajapan Gandhi was my political science professor.
Oh, okay.
And, I read
Good guy.
Guo with great enthusiasm.
Right.
Is it impractical? What's the...
I think that it is, in fact, it's becoming mandatory if we're going to survive to start to pay very serious attention to some of Gandhi's key insights about sustainability and social justice, which you can't separate. You can't have a wealth gap like you have in India, 60 billionaires whose net worth represents 34% of the country's GDP, and 800 million people living on less than $2 a day, and not expect the environment to be trashed. I mean, the two are connected for Gandhi, and I think you're seeing that very dramatically in what's unfolding here. It's very clear that we cannot continue to consume, and when I say we, I suppose I'm speaking especially as an American, because we're the ultra consumers, right? We're really the big hogs, consumption hogs on the planet. We cannot continue to consume like that. Americans can't, and they will have to, they're going to have to change. The problem is, of course, the US infrastructure is built to be a consumption infrastructure, even down to the transportation infrastructure, which is all built for cars. There's no public transportation infrastructure. I mean, I live in Paris. I can go to London for the weekend and go all around London and come back to Paris and never take a car, never sit in a taxi, never use a car. There's wonderful, beautiful public transportation. There are free bicycles in Paris, and now the mayor is putting in a system of free electric cars. And here you have Delhi Metro. Okay, these are the kinds of ways that we have to go. So we have to reduce our consumption. At the same time, Gandhi's asceticism is not something that's very appealing to a lot of people, especially to a lot of people who are absolutely drenched in this consumer culture. It's not appealing to a lot of young people. I remember when I was 20 and listening to my grandfather, sitting there in his khadi dhoti, talk about, and I just used my first Apple computer, and he was talking about technology being an evil thing, and you should never own a machine that you cannot take apart and put back together with your own hands. I would have not the slightest idea how to take this apart and put it back together, but it's essential for what I do. Okay, would not allow his daughters, my aunts, to go see movies because they were polluting, and it was a horrible, superficial medium. Gandhi never went to the movies. He didn't even want to meet Charlie Chaplin, but when he was told that Charlie Chaplin was a hero of the common man, then he agreed to meet him. But otherwise, a filmmaker, who would want to meet a filmmaker? And then my aunts were young women in Bombay. Of course, my grandfather would leave for his morning walk at 6 a.m. He walked on, my family's apartment was in Jubu near Jubu Beach. He'd walk on the beach. Basically, the minute the door closed, the Stardust and Femina magazines would come out from under the mattresses. I've talked about all this in my first book. So there's an element of enjoyment, fun, speed, all these intoxications of modern life and social life, artistic endeavors, aesthetic enjoyment that are really missing from the Gandhi paradigm, and that are hard to deprive people of. Very hard. I mean, having lived in a house with a Pakka Gandhian grandfather, and Gandhi couldn't even make his own children all bend to that. There was a very famous, problematic relationship with his son who left. So how do you take elements of Gandhi, and it's very difficult to dissociate the asceticism from the other stuff. Look at it carefully. How do you take elements of Gandhi, like how many planets, the British Empire needs an entire planet to create what it has created. How many planets would a nation such as India require to do the same thing? Gandhi asked that question how many decades ago? And now it's a question we're only starting to ask. How do you take elements of that without delegitimizing really the force of his philosophy and his militantism, and make it palatable and make it something that can have a real impact in the current moment? Especially in this moment in India where the consumer society is still very fresh and new, and as one of the college students I interviewed in my book says, we are just at the point where we can have all these things, and now you say, oh, global warming, you cannot have. Why should we deprive ourselves? You made this mess, you got the planet all dirty, you put all the carbon up there, and now you're saying, no, India, you cannot have, it's all for us. So those are legitimate arguments. But I think it's something it's a debate that needs to be had, and it's time to bring Gandhi back into the global conversation that we need to be having very, very urgently, because it's not looking good, about how we're going to survive the multiple messes we're in. And look what just happened in Egypt. A non-violent revolution. I mean, unbelievable. There wasn't even a Gandhi figure, okay? But what just happened there succeeded because you had a mass movement of ordinary people who just simply non-violently resisted the forces, the violence of the state. And, here's a key, it was all a public spectacle. Gandhi knew how to exploit spectacle. Gandhi knew very well that sending satyagrahis to get whacked across the head with a lati by the British guy could only be politically effective if it was in the press, if it was remarked upon, if it was public, if it could be seen, because that's the only way you can embarrass the person who's inflicting the violence. If the person who's inflicting the violence is not seen doing it, then it won't have an effect. So it's very, very interesting what just happened in Egypt. I don't know what's going to happen now in Egypt, but what just happened in Egypt is very, very interesting, and I think maybe gives some credence to the political dimension of satyagraha that had been completely discredited, even going back to the days when the Congress Party parted company with Gandhi and said, nice, thank you very much, Babu, you helped us get our freedom. We appreciate, but now please